What's up? It's Joey here. Let's talk about the real estate market. So prices haven't increased as fast since prior to the Great Recession. And in fact, in a lot of ways, some of the growth we're seeing is even more substantial than what we saw in the early 2000s. So the question is, are we headed for another housing-led financial crisis? And experts are saying no, and I tend to agree with the experts. And that's for two main reasons. One is credit availability. Two is housing supply. Prior to the recession, we extended credit to borrowers with bad credit scores, and we put them into products that were not ideal. After all, it was called the subprime mortgage crisis for a reason. If you actually look at the credit scores of borrowers over time from the 90s to the early 2000s, they didn't change that much. What changed were the types of loans that we were putting them into. 90% of these subprime loans that were originated during this time period contained interest rates that gradually increased over time. So what this meant was essentially the borrower is going to have to refinance at some point. At some point, the interest rate is going to increase to a level where the borrower, especially one with a poor credit situation, can no longer afford those payments. That's all well and good when the housing market's hot, right? Things are going up, prices are appreciating, everybody's happy, everybody's making money. But what happens when the economy starts to shift a little bit? What happens is lenders change their lending standards. The borrower who was anticipating being able to refinance can no longer refinance. They can no longer afford to make the payments that they're making. They start to default and go into delinquency and foreclosure. Houses get foreclosed upon. There's a flooding of housing supply onto the market of distressed sales. And this sends the market into a free fall. So that's what happened. From 2004 to 2006, almost 40% of all first lien mortgages were affordability products. Today, that number is 2%. So the underlying risk in those loans was much, much greater pre-recession than they are today. All right, so what about supply and demand? People are fleeing the cities, moving to the suburbs, snatching houses up like hotcakes. What's the deal there? Prior to the 2008 recession, housing prices were climbing so fast that it incentivized a building boom and a massive flooding of new housing supply to the market. In 2006, single unit completions were at an all-time high. So you combine this new flood of housing supply with the other flood of distress inventory coming onto the market, and you've got a massive issue and houses continuing their free fall in value. So this time around, we simply haven't been building enough homes. Definitely nothing that could be considered an oversupply. And the number of already built existing homes on the market are at an all-time low. We've never had less inventory on the market for sale than we do today. So it's not just that credit standards are better, it's that we don't have the same oversupply issues we had in the recession. There simply aren't enough homes out there to buy. That and the quality of our mortgage credit is good. Now, there's other factors as well. Obviously, it's a little more complicated than that. I mean, you could look at leverage, right? But that's another positive indicator for the market that we're in. The total outstanding mortgage debt nationwide versus the total value of homes in the U.S. is at the lowest levels it's been in 26 years. So I think we're on much more stable ground in the housing world than we were prior to the Great Recession. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Peace.